Alex had always dreamed of exploring the stars. He had trained for years, preparing for the day he would venture into space and discover new worlds. That day had arrived, but it wasn't as he had imagined. His ship, the Odyssey, had been struck by an unknown force while in deep space. The warning alarms blared, and before Alex could react, the ship spiraled out of control. The world outside was nothing like what he expected. The sky was a deep purple, filled with swirling clouds, while the landscape beneath him seemed both alien and beautiful. Tall, twisting trees loomed in the distance, their leaves glowing faintly in the twilight. The air was thick and warm, with a faint, sweet scent that did little to comfort him as the Odyssey crashed to the ground. The force of the impact sent Alex flying across the cockpit. He slammed into the control panel, his vision blurred as his head hit the metal. For a moment he thought he had lost consciousness, but the pain in his side told him otherwise. His heart raced, and his breath came in shallow gasps. He was alive. Barely, the ship had crash-landed in a dense forest, its hull broken and smoking. The ground beneath Alex's feet felt soft, and the air was thick with humidity. His first thought was to check the status of the ship. He scrambled to his feet, feeling the sharp pain in his side. He clutched his ribs, but he pushed forward. The wreckage was scattered around him. The ship's engines were still hissing with steam. "Stay calm, Alex," he muttered to himself. He looked at the control panel, which was completely fried. The communication system was down, and the navigation system was useless. There was no way to call for help. His only option was to survive and find a way to get off this strange planet. The ship's emergency beacon should have been activated, but as Alex checked, he realized it was silent. The beacon was destroyed in the crash. He glanced around the wreckage, noticing the thick green vegetation that had grown all around the ship. The trees were unlike anything he had seen before. Their trunks twisted upward in spirals, and their leaves shimmered as if made of metal. Something about the scene felt wrong, as if the forest itself was alive and watching him. Alex knew he had to keep moving. If he stayed near the wreckage, he risked being trapped. The forest seemed dangerous, but it was his only chance of survival. He took a deep breath and decided to leave the ship behind. He grabbed his emergency kit from the wreckage and set off into the forest. The ground was soft and uneven, making each step feel heavier than the last. He stumbled a few times, but his training kept him focused. He knew that in situations like this, every decision mattered as he moved deeper into the forest. Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was following him. The air was thick with a strange energy, and the trees whispered in the wind. He couldn't make out the words, but the sound felt almost like a warning. Hours passed, and the sun sank lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the land. The further Alex ventured, the stranger the world became. The ground beneath his feet was soft, almost spongy. The trees towered over him, and some had strange bioluminescent flowers growing on their branches. The forest was alive, but in a way that felt different from Earth's forests. It was as if this place had a mind of its own. He came across strange, glowing mushrooms sprouting from the ground, their colors shifting as he approached. Their pulsing light seemed to draw him in, but Alex didn't trust them. He had learned in his training to be cautious of anything unusual in unknown environments. He continued walking, making sure to keep his distance from the strange plants. Nightfall came quickly, temperature dropped, and Alex's breath became visible in the cool air. He found a small clearing and decided to rest for the night. The forest was eerily quiet now, but Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He made a small fire from some dry wood he had gathered, and its warmth brought him a small sense of comfort as he sat by the fire. Trying to get some rest, Alex noticed the strange sounds of the forest again. There was a rustling in the bushes nearby, but when he turned to look, there was nothing there. It was as if the forest itself was playing tricks on him. He stood up, clutching his weapon. The forest had a way of making him feel small and vulnerable, but he wasn't going to let fear control him. He had to keep moving. He had to survive. Just as Alex was about to turn and head back into the trees, he heard a sound. It wasn't like the usual rustling of leaves or the wind. It was a sharp, frantic noise coming from somewhere deep in the forest. It sounded like someone or something was in trouble. Without thinking, Alex grabbed his pack and followed the sound, his instincts kicking in. The forest seemed to grow darker with each step, and the air became thick with tension. The strange noise grew louder, and soon Alex was running, not knowing what he was about to find. Then he saw it. In a small clearing ahead, a creature was trapped in the roots of a large spiky plant. The plant seemed to pulse with life, its tendrils wrapped around the alien creature like a deadly vine. The creature let out a desperate cry, struggling to break free, but the plant tightened its grip. Alex didn't hesitate. Without thinking about the danger, he ran toward the creature. The plant's tendrils snapped at him, but he ducked and dodged. Reaching the creature in time to pry it free, he wasn't sure what kind of alien it was, but he could see the fear in its eyes. The alien's body was covered in strange markings, and it was clearly in pain. Alex worked quickly using his tools. To cut away the plant's grip, the creature gasped for breath as Alex helped it to its feet. It looked at him with wide, grateful eyes, but Alex could tell that it was hurt. The alien couldn't speak, but Alex could feel its gratitude through the bond they shared in that moment. He was taking a huge risk, but helping this creature seemed to be the only right thing to do. It was then that Alex realized, for better or worse, he was no longer alone on this hostile world. Alex stood over the alien creature, his heart racing. The creature was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Its body was sleek, covered in smooth scales that shimmered under the light of the twin moons. It was smaller than Alex, but the way it looked at him made him feel both cautious and protective. The alien's large eyes were filled with fear, but they also held a glimmer of gratitude. It seemed to understand that Alex had saved it from the deadly plant. The plant, now releasing its grip on the alien's body, looked harmless. But Alex knew better. He had seen similar plants in his training back on Earth, plants that used tendrils to trap prey. This one was no different. He had acted fast, but he wasn't sure how long the plant would remain inactive. It might try. Again, Alex glanced around. The alien world seemed to be alive in a way that he couldn't understand. The air was thick with strange sounds, whispers carried by the wind, the rustling of unseen creatures moving through the underbrush. Even the plants themselves seemed to be waiting for something, their leaves twitching as if aware of his presence. He turned his attention back to the creature. It was struggling to stand, its body weak from the plant's grip. It looked at Alex, trying to communicate, but there were no words. Instead, the alien raised one arm and pointed toward a distant hill, its movements slow and deliberate. Alex followed the direction of its gaze, and he saw the silhouette of a structure on the horizon. It looked like a tower, made of stone or metal. Though it was too far to tell for sure, the alien pointed again, its expression firm, as if trying to tell Alex something important. He looked back at the creature, trying to figure out its intentions. It didn't speak, but its gesture was clear. The creature wanted to go to that structure, and it seemed to expect Alex to go with it. Alex hesitated. He wasn't sure if it was wise to follow this alien, especially after everything he had already been through. But then he realized something. This planet was full of dangers, and he had no idea how to survive on his own. Perhaps by helping this alien, he would have a better chance of finding safety, or at least a way off the planet. He had to trust his instincts. All right, Alex muttered to himself, though he wasn't sure if the alien could understand him. Let's see what's over there. Alex stood up, offering the creature a hand. It hesitated for a moment, then grasped his hand with surprising strength. The creature's grip felt warm, its skin almost glowing in the dim light of the alien world. The bond between them was strange, but Alex could feel it growing stronger with each passing second. Hold on, Alex said as he helped the alien to its feet. We need to move quickly. Who knows what else is out here? The alien nodded, though it didn't speak. Instead, it began walking in the direction of the distant structure, its steps cautious but steady. Keeping a careful eye on their surroundings, the forest around them seemed to shift as they moved, as if the trees themselves were watching them. For hours they trudged through the dense undergrowth. The air grew warmer as they walked, and the atmosphere seemed to thicken, making it harder to breathe. Alex wiped the sweat from his forehead, wishing he had brought more water with him. The alien seemed to feel the same, though it didn't show any signs of exhaustion. It moved with ease, despite the obvious pain it had been in earlier. Eventually, it came to a clearing where the alien stopped. Alex noticed the air had changed, becoming cooler and fresher. The alien turned to him, its face serious as it pointed. To a nearby rock formation, there hidden behind the rocks, was a small stream of water flowing gently. "Water," Alex muttered under his breath. I hadn't realized how thirsty he was until the sight of the stream made his mouth dry. Without hesitation, he rushed to the stream and bent down to drink. The cool water was refreshing, and he drank his fill, taking several deep gulps. He was careful not to drink too much, though, knowing that he would need to ration his supplies. The alien watched him with its large eyes, its gaze not full of judgment, but something more. Curiosity, perhaps, or a deep sense of gratitude. Alex looked back at the creature, realizing that this being had no reason to trust him, yet it was here, helping him as much as he was helping it. After a few moments, Alex stood up and offered the alien a drink. The creature hesitated for only a moment before taking a careful sip from the stream. It seemed to appreciate the gesture, though it didn't show any signs of speaking. Its eyes softened, and it looked at Alex as if understanding. Something more profound had passed between them. "Let's keep moving," Alex said. The moment of calm was nice, but it wouldn't last long. The world around them was still hostile, and Alex knew there was no time to waste. They had to reach the structure. Whatever it was their only hope for finding shelter or getting it. Some answers, as they continued on their journey, the forest grew darker. The strange creatures that once filled the trees now seemed to be avoiding them. Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The alien world was full of dangerous plants, animals, and perhaps even the terrain itself. He couldn't trust anything here, but he trusted the creature beside him. His life earlier, and now, it was helping him navigate this strange world. Hours passed. The tower still seemed far away. They took a break once more, and Alex sat down on a large rock to rest. He couldn't stop thinking about the journey ahead. The creature, despite its pain, seemed determined to reach its destination. But Alex had no idea what awaited them there. All he could do was follow. The hours dragged on as Alex and the alien, whom he had come to think of as Zari, made their way through the dense alien forest. The air was thick with humidity, and the strange calls of unknown creatures echoed through the trees. The further they walked, the more Alex began to feel the strain of their journey. His body ached from the crash, his injuries now dull thorns of pain that made every movement feel like an effort. But Zari, though injured, seemed almost unaffected by the strain. It moved with grace, navigating the dense forest as though it had lived there for years. Alex had to admit that he was starting to trust Zari. Despite being from a completely different world, there was something in the alien's gaze that made Alex feel like they were not so different after all. Zari had no words to speak, but its actions spoke volumes. It had led them safely through the forest, warned Alex of dangers, and even guided him toward the stream where they had found water. In return, Alex had helped Zari using his knowledge and tools to keep the alien alive. Together, they were an unlikely team bound by necessity and the strange bond that had formed between them as they continued their trek. Zari paused every now and then, looking back at Alex as if checking on him. Alex was grateful for the alien's concern. He had never expected to find himself in such a situation, stranded on a hostile world, surrounded by dangers he didn't understand. And yet here he was, working alongside an alien creature in order to survive. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the foot of the hill that Zari had been pointing to earlier. The structure loomed above them, casting a long shadow across the ground as the twin moons rose high in the sky. The building was ancient, its stone walls cracked and weathered by time, but still standing strong. There were no signs of life around it, but Alex knew they had to check. The place might offer shelter, or at least answers to their questions. Zari motioned for Alex to follow. It moved toward the entrance of the structure with purpose, its steps sure and steady. Alex trailed behind, his hand resting on the weapon at his side, ready for anything. The air seemed to grow colder as they approached. The entrance and the strange alien sounds of the forest faded into a heavy silence. Alex felt his heart begin to beat faster. They were close to something important. He could feel it in his gut. The entrance to the structure was dark, but Zari stepped forward without hesitation. It seemed to know the way. Alex, however, took a moment to look around, scanning the area for any signs of danger. The forest had grown eerily quiet, and the feeling that they were being watched returned. But there was nothing he could do but follow Zari inside. The door to the structure creaked open, and Alex followed the alien through the entrance. Inside, the air was cooler, though still heavy with the scent of strange plants and earth. Walls were lined with what seemed to be ancient symbols glowing faintly in the dim light. Alex studied the symbols, but they were completely foreign to him. He had no idea what they meant. Zaire stopped in the middle of the room, looking around, as if searching for something. Its eyes scanned the walls, and Alex watched with growing curiosity. What was Zari looking for? Was this place a safe haven? Or was it another danger waiting to be uncovered? After a moment, Zari turned and faced Alex, its expression unreadable. Then, without warning, the alien sank to its knees in front of him. Alex froze, unsure of what to do. The sudden gesture surprised him, but he quickly understood the meaning behind it. Zari was thanking him acknowledging the help he had given. Alex knelt down beside the alien, his heart swelling with a mix of gratitude and confusion. "Hey," Alex said softly, unsure if Zari could understand his words, but feeling the need to speak. "We're not out of danger yet, but you're safe. Now, you've helped me more than I could have ever asked for." Before he could finish, Zari reached up and placed a hand on his arm. It was a gentle touch, but it spoke volumes. In that moment, Alex felt a deep connection, one that transcended the differences between their species. This alien, whom he had first seen as a threat, is now his Alea companion in a strange and dangerous world. Zari's eyes softened, and Alex could sense the alien's relief. Despite the pain and exhaustion, Zari had found a sense of peace. The bond between them had formed without words, based purely on mutual trust and the understanding that they had to survive together. "We'll make it through this," Alex said, his voice firm. He didn't know how, but he believed it. Had come this far, and they could go even further. Together, Zari slowly stood up, its movements still a little slow but filled with determination. It turned back toward the heart of the structure, as if sensing something more ahead. Alex stood as well, taking a deep breath. Whatever was inside, it might hold the key to their survival, or even a way to escape this hostile world. With a nod from Zari, Alex followed the alien deeper into the structure. The walls seemed to pulse with an ancient energy. Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something much bigger than just a place of shelter. What had they stumbled upon? Was it just a relic of the past? Or was there something more at play here? He couldn't answer that yet, but he knew one thing. Zari had already saved his life. And now he would do everything he could to repay the favor. As they moved deeper into the structure, Alex felt a sense of resolve building within him. He had no idea what the future held, but with Zari by his side, he was ready to face whatever came next. They had a long way to go, but the journey was just beginning. The structure was unlike anything Alex had ever seen before. The walls were made of strange, glowing stone that pulsed softly, like it was alive. Alex couldn't understand its purpose, but it felt ancient, as though it had been waiting for them. He stood in the entrance for a moment, taking in his surroundings. The place was quiet, almost too quiet. It was the kind of silence that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Zari moved past him, its movements graceful and fluid as it entered the chamber. It seemed at ease here, as if it belonged. Alex, on the other hand, felt like an outsider alien to this place, this world. But he knew that he couldn't afford to hesitate. Zari was leading the way, and he had no choice but to follow. The chamber they had entered was large, with high ceilings that stretched up into darkness. The walls were covered with intricate carvings and strange symbols that Alex couldn't begin to understand. Some of them seemed to glow faintly, but most were faded, worn by time. There was no sign of anyone living here, but there were remnants of old, broken equipment scattered around the room. It was as if this place had been abandoned long ago. Zari seemed to study the symbols, its eyes narrowing as it examined the carvings on the walls. Alex watched in silence, wondering what the alien was thinking. Could see the intelligence in Zari's eyes, the way it understood things that Alex couldn't. The alien looked back at him, and motioned for him to follow. They continued through the structure, moving deeper into the heart of the building. As they walked, the temperature seemed to drop, and the air became thick with the scent of old stone and dust. The silence was unsettling, but Alex kept moving. They were in this together, and he couldn't let fear take hold. After what felt like ours, they reached a large door at the end of a long hallway. The door was made of the same glowing stone, but it was much larger than the others. It was covered in more symbols, and Alex noticed that some of them seemed to move, shifting and changing as if they had a life of their own. Zari approached the door, its eyes fixed on the symbols. It seemed to be searching for something, as if it knew exactly what to do. Alex stepped closer, trying to make sense of what Zari was doing. The alien reached out and placed a hand on the door. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the symbols on the door began to glow brighter, and the stone shifted with a low rumble. The door began to slide open, revealing what lay beyond. The room on the other side was unlike any place Alex had ever imagined. It was vast, with walls made of smooth, dark stone that seemed to absorb the light. At the center of the room was a large pedestal, and on it sat a glowing orb. The orb was pulsing, with a soft, steady light, and Alex could feel its energy from across the room. It was as if the orb was alive, and it filled the room with a strange, comforting warmth. Zura approached the pedestal slowly, its eyes never leaving the orb. Alex hesitated, unsure of what to do. Was this the purpose of their journey? Was this what Zari had been leading him to? The alien stood before the pedestal, its expression serious. It reached out with one hand and gently touched the orb. As soon as it made contact, a flash of light filled the room, and Alex had to shield his eyes. The light was blinding, but as quickly as it came, it faded. Alex found himself standing in the same room, but everything felt different. Zara stood motionless before the orb, its hand still resting on it. The air seemed charged, as if something had changed. Alex's heart raced as he watched the alien. He felt the tension in the air, the weight of the moment. The orb had done something, but he wasn't sure what. Zara turned to him, its eyes wide. It spoke then, but the words were not in any language Alex recognized. The sound was a low hum, a vibration in the air that seemed to echo in his mind. Alex didn't understand the words, but he could feel the urgency in Zari's voice. The alien stepped back from the pedestal, and the orb began to glow brighter, pulsing in rhythm with the strange energy that filled the room. For a moment, Alex thought the world around him was shifting. The walls of the room seemed to pulse with light, and the ground beneath his feet felt unsteady. He reached out to steady himself, but the ground seemed to vibrate beneath him. It was as if the room itself was alive. Then the orb began to shrink, its light dimming. Zari moved quickly to Alex's side, its hand gripping his arm with surprising strength. Alex looked at the alien, confusion and fear rising in his chest. What was happening? What had the orb done? Suddenly, the room seemed to collapse inward, and Alex felt a rush of wind as everything around him began to blur. The walls of the room disappeared, and he found himself standing in an open field, surrounded by tall, glowing plants that seemed to sway in the wind. The sky above was darker now, filled with swirling clouds and flashes of lightning. It felt like a dream, a strange, surreal vision that didn't make sense. Zari was still beside him, its eyes scanning the horizon. The alien didn't seem surprised, but Alex was in shock. What had just happened? Was this a different place? A different time? He couldn't understand, but then he saw something else. In the distance, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was tall and imposing, with strange, glowing eyes. The figure moved toward them, its footsteps slow and deliberate. Alex felt his heart skip a beat. Was this friend or foe? Zari stepped forward, its eyes locked on the approaching figure. Alex didn't know what to expect, but he knew one thing. Whatever was happening, they had to face it together. The figure in the distance continued to approach, its glowing eyes fixed on Alex and Zari. The air around them felt heavier, as if the very atmosphere was thickening with the tension of what was to come. Alex's heart raced, his hand instinctively, reaching for the weapon at his side. Zari, however, did not seem afraid. The alien moved forward with a steady grace, its eyes focused on the mysterious figure. Alex hesitated for a moment, his thoughts racing. Was this figure a threat, or was it an ally? The entire situation felt surreal, as if they were caught in a moment beyond their understanding. He glanced at Zari, trying to read the alien's expression, but Zari's face was unreadable, its eyes locked onto the approaching figure. The figure grew closer, its features becoming clearer. It was tall, even taller than Alex, with a slender, almost ethereal build. Skin was pale, almost translucent, and it seemed to shimmer in the dim light. Its eyes, glowing with an unnatural light, were fixed on Zari, who now stood just a few steps ahead of Alex. The figure's movements were slow, deliberate, as if it was studying them both. Alex's grip tightened around his weapon, but Zari placed a hand on his arm, stopping him. The alien's touch was firm but gentle, as if telling Alex that there was no need for fear. Zari stepped forward, closing the distance between them and the figure. The two seemed to be communicating, though Alex couldn't understand a word. They were saying, it was as if they were speaking a language that transcended words, a language of gestures and subtle movements. The figure raised a hand, its long fingers glowing faintly. Zari responded with a gesture of its own, and the two stood in silence for a moment. Alex watched, his mind racing with questions. What was happening? Who was this figure? And why was Zari not afraid? Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the figure lowered its hand and turned to face Alex. It didn't speak, but there was a sense of understanding in its gaze. It was as if the figure was waiting for Alex to make a move. Alex took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. He didn't know what to do, but he knew that he couldn't stand there forever. Slowly, he stepped forward, his eyes never leaving the figure. The alien's gaze didn't waver, its glowing eyes steady and unblinking. It felt like a test, like the figure was trying to gauge his reaction. Zari, Alex said quietly, his voice unsure. Do you know who this is? Zari looked back at him, its expression softening. The alien's eyes were filled with something Alex couldn't quite place, something like empathy, or maybe even sympathy. Zari gave a small nod, though Alex still had no idea what was happening. The figure took another step toward Alex, and this time it extended its hand. The gesture was slow and deliberate, as if offering something to Alex. There was no sign of hostility in the figure's movements, just an invitation. Alex hesitated for a moment, then slowly reached out. When their hands touched, a shock of energy passed through him, but it wasn't painful. It was like a pulse, a wave of warmth that spread through his entire body. It was as though the figure was sharing something with him, something deep and ancient. In that instant, Alex felt a flood of images fill his mind, images of distant stars, alien landscapes, and strange civilizations. He saw flashes of a war, a battle that had torn through worlds, a battle that Zari had fought in long ago. He saw the destruction, the pain, and the hope that had emerged from it all. He saw Zari's people, their strength, their resilience, and their connection to the stars. The images were overwhelming, and Alex pulled his hand back, his heart racing. The figure stepped back, its glowing eyes watching him intently. Zari moved closer to Alex, placing a hand on his shoulder in a reassuring gesture. What was that? Alex asked, his voice shaky. He was still trying to process what had just happened. The images had felt so real, so vivid. He had felt the weight of the war, the loss, and the hope all at once. But what did it all mean? Zari looked at him, its expression serious but not unfriendly. It was as if the alien understood his confusion, but Alex still couldn't make sense of what had just occurred. The figure, now standing in the background, had said nothing, but there was an unspoken understanding. Between them all, Zari had shared something with him, something important. But what was it? and why now? The figure turned away, its glowing eyes flicking to the horizon. It seemed to be waiting for something, watching for a sign. Zari stepped forward again, this time with more certainty. The alien motioned for Alex to follow, and with a glance at the mysterious figure, Alex did. They walked together, heading toward the distant horizon, where another strange structure loomed in the distance. This one was taller, more intricate than the last, and Alex could feel the tension in the air growing stronger with every step. They were moving toward something important, but what it was, Alex didn't know. All he knew was that they had to keep moving. The forest around them began to shift, the trees parting to reveal a narrow path that led up a steep hill. The path was winding, and the air was thick with the scent of strange flowers and plants. As they climbed, Alex glanced back at the figure, still standing where they had left it. The figure was watching them, but it didn't follow. It had given them a path to walk, but now it seemed content to stay behind. Zari led the way, its movements confident and sure. Alex followed closely behind, unsure of what was ahead, but feeling a sense of determination building inside him. Had faced danger, but they had come this far together. He couldn't stop now, whatever was waiting for them at the top of the hill. Alex knew one thing for sure. They were in this together, and they would face it head-on. The path up the hill seemed endless. Alex's legs were tired, and his mind raced with questions. What had just happened with the mysterious figure? What was the orb? And most importantly, what lay ahead? Zari moved ahead of him, its steps light, and sure, as though it had walked this path 1,000 times before. Alex tried to keep up, but the strange landscape around them made it difficult to focus. The air was thick with the scent of unfamiliar flowers, and the trees on either side of the narrow trail were twisting in odd directions, their branches reaching out as if trying to grab them. The forest had changed yet again, becoming denser and more difficult to navigate. Despite the challenges, Alex didn't feel as scared as he had when they first arrived. The bond between him and Zari had grown stronger. He had saved the aliens' life, and in return, Zari had kept him alive, guiding him through the dangers of this hostile world. He didn't know exactly how he felt about everything that had happened, the figure, the orb, the strange visions. But he did know one thing. Zari was the key to understanding this world. Together, they might just have a chance to survive. As they reached the top of the hill, the view was breathtaking. The dark, stormy sky stretched out in all directions, and Alex could see the outlines of distant mountains in the far distance. A vast expanse of land lay before them, dotted with strange, glowing plants that flickered in the night. But it wasn't just the landscape that caught Alex's attention. At the center of the plateau, there was another structure, a massive, ancient-looking building that appeared to be made from the same glowing stone as the pedestal. Back inside the chamber, the building seemed to pulse with an energy that Alex could feel deep in his chest. Almost as if it was alive, I stopped at the edge of the plateau and looked out at the structure. It turned to Alex, its eyes narrowing as if trying to communicate something important. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. This was the place Zari had been leading him toward, but now that they were here, Alex wasn't sure what to do. Was this the end of their journey, or the beginning? Zari stepped forward, walking toward the entrance of the building with a sense of purpose. Alex hesitated for a moment before following. His mind was still filled with questions, but there was no turning back now. The alien world was dangerous. The only way out, if there even was a way out, was to keep moving forward. The entrance to the building was wide and open, and as they stepped inside, Alex could feel the air change. It was cooler in here, and the air seemed to hum with energy. The walls were lined with the same glowing stone, and the floor beneath them was made of smooth, black tiles that seemed to absorb the light. The interior of the building was vast, with high ceilings that stretched up into darkness. Strange symbols were etched into the walls, some of which glowed faintly. At the far end of the room was another pedestal, similar to the one they had seen before, but this one was much larger. It was raised on a platform, and the air around it was thick with energy. In the center of the pedestal was a large crystal, glowing with an intense blue light. The crystal was pulsating as if it had a heartbeat of its own, Zari moved toward the pedestal without hesitation, its steps sure and deliberate. Alex followed, his heart racing in his chest. He didn't know what to expect, but he knew that whatever was going to happen, it would change everything. When Zari reached the pedestal, it stopped and turned to Alex, its eyes meeting his. There was a moment of silence, and then, without warning, Zari reached out and placed a hand on the crystal. As soon as its fingers made contact, a surge of energy filled the room, and Alex felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. The crystal began to glow brighter. The air seemed to crackle with power. Alex stepped back, instinctively reaching for his weapon, though he knew it would do no good here. He watched as Zari stood before the pedestal, its hand resting gently on the crystal. The alien didn't flinch, didn't seem to feel the overwhelming energy that was pulsing through the room. Instead, it stood still, as though it was waiting for something. Then, the energy in the room shifted. Alex felt a wave of warmth wash over him, and for a moment, it was as if time had stopped. The crystal began to hum, and the symbols on the walls began to glow brighter, their patterns shifting and changing in a way that Alex couldn't comprehend. It was as if the building itself was alive, reacting to Zari's presence. Zari's expression softened, and Alex saw something he hadn't noticed before. Deep ancient sadness in the alien's eyes. It was as though Zari was remembering something. Something from long ago. The connection between them, which had grown stronger over the past few days, was now undeniable. Zari had been waiting for this moment, just as Alex had been waiting to understand the truth. The energy in the room reached its peak. And then, with a sudden burst of light, the crystal released a shockwave of energy that sent Alex stumbling backward. He collided with the wall, his head spinning as the force of the energy rushed through him. But it wasn't painful. It was as if the energy was healing him, filling him with a sense of clarity and purpose. When the light faded, Alex found himself standing at the center of the room, alone. Zari was gone. For a moment, Alex didn't know what to think. Had Zari disappeared? Was this some kind of test? But then, he noticed something else. The symbols on the walls had stopped glowing, and the crystal on the pedestal was now dim. The building felt empty. The energy that had filled the room was gone. Replaced by an eerie silence, Alex took a deep breath and looked around. He had no idea what had just happened, but one thing was certain. This was the moment that would define everything. The truth was out there, and he had to find it. He couldn't stop now. With a new sense of determination, Alex stepped forward, ready to uncover the mystery of the alien world and the part he was meant to play in its future.